Welcome. I'm Vila Lucas, a certified healer and guide with Modern Mystery School. This is Inner Radiance Academy. We are doing a conversation today about meeting life where it is at. And I am talking today with my dear friend and colleague,
An amazing, wonderful goddess.
Sydney Culver. So, Sydney, thank you so much for being here today. So, you are
My
also a guide and a healer and embodiment coach and body worker, and you do so many things. Sydney, anything else you want to add to this list of wonderful things and the ways that you serve people?
yeah, just that I have a deep dedication to the honoring of the masculine and feminine, and that's definitely also in my mission here as a light worker.
Yes. Oh my gosh. So I'm so excited that you're here and I'm so excited that we are chatting because I want to feature you on a regular basis because there's so many wonderful, juicy, important nuggets in this realm of understanding the dynamic and the dance between feminine and masculine, and really kind of right now how the energy of the divine feminine is showing up in a whole different way, and how we're being asked to and called to meet it differently and embody it more fully and utilize this divine feminine energy in how we live our lives, which for most people is really new. I am so excited to be engaging in a series of conversations because it's definitely not just one. There's so much for us to
So
get to
much,
talk about on that topic.
so much richness. I'm curious, not, we could, there's many tangents we can and will take, but I'm curious. You mentioned you're seeing it showing up differently. I'm curious how you've been noticing that or what you've been noticing around the divine feminine showing up differently.
Yeah. Yeah. So I love thanks for the question. So, what I would say to that is, I feel like right now we are really in this new kind of experience, which is that life is not predictable in the way it used to be. So, pre pandemic, we could say, okay, here's the kind of stuff that's going to happen in a day. Here's the kind of stuff that's going to happen in a week. Here's the kind of stuff that's going to happen this month. And we kind of can't do that anymore. I mean, COVID has made it so travel is no longer the same, being able to predict even laws and requirements, like when do you have to have a mask, when do you have to have a vaccine, and that it's different everywhere. So there's this constant like needing to be really present in the moment with what's happening. So I feel like, we're well versed, especially in our Western culture, in like that more masculine style of predictability or foresight or looking down the road or planning. And then, I see the feminine as more, in the moment, responsive to whatever is happening. And so I feel like that's one of the biggest differences that I see. What do you have to say on that? Do you agree with that kind of assessment?
Yeah, I also would say that since we moved into this year, 2022, and there's so much divine feminine energy in that numerology, and I felt a very significant change in the energy. I feel, the energies of Shambhala that much more presence. I feel that access to the purity of the divine feminine energy is also much more accessible in a different way. I notice like I can touch it just like I can touch the Shambhala energies differently. It's like I feel like there isn't so much gook in the way. And so that's been a really interesting experience. And I feel like given that those energies are so much more present, we're being asked to recalibrate and to learn how to
Yeah.
create and flow our energy and respond and meet life where it is in a different way.
Yes. Yes. And I absolutely love that, you've been tuned into this topic for a long time. So I love that you can speak to the fact that it has shifted and there, it's like the volume level has turned up, like our access to that divine feminine frequency, it's much higher volume. Like we can access it more directly. It's more present for us. And it's kind of demanding things of us in a whole new way too. So our topic, what we framed this today is meeting life where it's at. And this was a phrase that came up in one of our other conversations on Clubhouse, and where it was just like, that's really kind of all we can do right now. And it's really the ultimate of what we, quote, should be doing in our day to day lives. So, what more might you say about that, Sydney?
There's so much I could say about that. I feel like one of the pieces that I've been noticing about that, I love how you referred to like the volume being turned up. That feels very feminine way of creating is to be kind of generative rather than, like magnetic rather than forcing or pushing. And so for me, there's this tussle between very much honoring and being in the moment of what's arising for me, and then also being mindful of the things that I want to give birth to and what am I holding in my feminine to give birth to. And this topic is really present for me because in this moment, like in a lot of vulnerability, like going through some things in my personal life, I just want to curl up in a little ball, right? And so
Yeah.
um there's this, experience of like, okay, what's really occurring for me in my emotional space, and how do I need to attend to that to fill my own cup? But then at the same time, I can't just like let go of all the other things that I have responsibility to. And one of those things is giving birth to a center. And so there's this balance between like letting myself go into the down, which is also the feminine, like the descent, like go into the rawness and the feeling and the vulnerability, and give myself the time to do that. And then also touch the frequency and the vision and the thing that I'm giving birth to, like to also keep holding that and to kind of do both. And I think in the past, for me, it was like one or the other, like I
Right,
could
right.
go in the down and then I could be productive. But like I couldn't really function in both very effectively. And I feel, that ability to do the both and to like fully meet life where it is, but not let whatever is arising dictate exactly who we're showing up to be either. It's like showing up with what we want to give birth to. And I feel like our frequency as women, especially in these energies, is so powerful in creating, whether it's like an interaction or something we're creating physically or a relationship. It's like our energy and our frequency is always first and always leads. And so I've taken on a practice of really taking a lot of ownership and care and love. Like it's part of my practice to tend to that frequency that I'm holding. Sometimes that's fully congruent with where I am in my personal moments. And sometimes, like it is today, those things aren't congruent, but how do I hold the both?
Oh my God, yes. Like I was taking notes because I'm like, oh, all these things, so many good nuggets. You used one of my favorite words lately, which is honoring. I think it's so important that we remember just how powerful that is to honor what's happening, to honor where we're at in a moment, to honor the journey that we're on, to honor, like you said, the space that we are occupying. And it may not be the space we wish we were in. And, that's something like you were saying, as light workers, sometimes we have other responsibilities. We're supposed to show up for people in particular ways. People are counting on us for this, that, or the other, not just as light workers, but especially when we're in, a position of serving others. It's like, how do we justify or make sense or get to the point where we can rectify taking the time we need for ourselves when we aren't necessarily occupying the space that we wish we were in or really need to be in order to serve the way we want to. And so I think it puts an interesting spin on it where it's a place where we can end up, I know for me, going into a lot of self judgment or self criticism around like, oh man, like, I'm down with a migraine and I really need to be doing this. I really need to be making this kind of progress. I really
Mm-hmm.
need to this, instead of really honoring like, wow, okay, so a migraine has shown up. Like, what is that indicating to me? It's indicating some aspect of my nervous system, some aspect of my physical energy system is not okay with the levels of what's going on right here. So that means I need to step back. I need to pull back my activity, pull back my stimulus, pull back my stress levels, and really honor that that's what my system is saying to me right now. And I feel like this new paradigm energy, these new frequencies that are on the planet are really, again, have kind of turned up the volume on those threshold levels where it's like we can't get away with as much as we used to be able to get away with pushing those edges, is kind of how I feel about it.
Well, I think that one of the energies that is always a part of the feminine for me, and also very much a part of the Shambhala energy, is the energy of love. And that's like one of the through lines I always am seeking to be in connection with in any given moment, whether it's how I relate to myself or how I relate to another or how I relate to the moment and what's arising. And with love is always acceptance. And even if it's not like in our quote preferences, right? It's like I can still accept and embrace. and work with. And being in service, like, always requires we have to serve ourselves first and we have to fill our cup first. And what I've noticed is that if I'm over giving or I'm overextending, then I'm often doing that not really from service. I'm doing that from an old people pleasing program or codependent program, or a program that says that I have to give to get, or whatever of the different nuances of those overextensions are, or work addiction, or what have you. And so I find that, like, if I'm able to really fill my own cup up first, then I have a full well to give from. And, taking whatever moment to do that, or hour or day or whatever is available, and then finding a way to fill my own cup so that I can show up and be fully resourced. And, like this morning, I took an extra couple hours in bed and just being with all of the different crunchy, ouchy, vulnerable stuff that's moving in my system. And then I got up and I showered and I had my morning routine with my cat on my lap in the couch looking at the lake. And my kitty came and laid on my lap, and it's the thing one thing we do together every morning. And I was reminded, like, oh, the sweet things are still sweet. The
Mm.
things that I love, that I was appreciating before XYZ happened in my personal life, are still here for me to appreciate. So I started to just, like, re-presence the gratitude. And then, like, in that moment, these two beautiful trumpeter swans, like, flew across the lake in front of me. And I was just like, whoa, like, that was such this beautiful
Wow.
affirmation of everything. It's just a beautiful omen. But just,
Yes.
like, taking the time to fill my own cup, to have my moment, so that, whether I was being on this call with you or the clients that I'll serve later, that I'm able to then put my attention on the service itself. And then I always find that being in service fills my cup right back.
Yes.
But if I try to serve from an empty cup, or I'm serving from, which to me is what happens when we're, kind of often serving from our ego, or negative ego,
Yeah.
or we're in a strategy to try and push some part of ourselves away, then we can't even access the frequency of love because we're already in separation with ourselves.
Yes. Oh my gosh. So many good nuggets in that. I feel like we could spend a month unpacking so many of the pieces that you just spoke to. I love this phrase that you used, which is work addiction. And I haven't thought about that in a while. And I love how this conversation is really shedding light on, the experiences I've been having lately with this juxtaposition of a more feminine approach versus a more masculine approach to day-to-day life and productivity and getting things done. But then also kind of where it's time to let go of some of these deeper patterns that have been running us. And as you mentioned, this codependence and people pleasing or forcing yourself to do something to get a positive response or reaction, and not moving from a place of true service, and where that really is kind of embedded in this addiction we have to, like, external validation, or and I have to do this in order to get that. And I feel like this new paradigm energy is really helping us find a new way, which is really to be more present in the moment, be honoring of what's happening, and still holding that intention. That's something you spoke a little bit earlier about, like going down into the depths, like, okay, here I am. I'm having this really intense, for me yesterday, it was kind of a nervous system breakdown where it was like all of a sudden I was overloaded at a level I didn't see coming. And it was like I could heap negativity onto that and get upset about the fact that it was happening, or I could honor it and go into what is the experience? Where is this leading me that I may not have been able to get to otherwise? And still holding in the midst of that. And I still have these people to serve, or I still have these appointments to get to, or I still have these other things that are really important to me. And not that I want to force myself to do that or harm myself in the process of getting there, but rather honor the reality of the journey that I'm in and the gifts that I might receive along the way. Which I love that these trumpeter swans that you saw this morning were such an affirmation of, like, yes, there are gifts in this. There are gifts when you go into the depths and meet whatever darkness might be there. You go into the darkness and meet whatever treasures you might find in the depths of those caves. Such good stuff.
I also feel like there's a lot about how the energy is right now where you mentioned this earlier, but like we have to really be in the unknown a lot.
Yeah.
And just, it's like the plan isn't being rolled out so many steps ahead. It's just kind of like, oh, the next step, and then the next step, and then the next step. And there's a lot of trust and faith in working with the unknown and all. Then I always find unknown also can bring up my tendencies to want to control or force, or because it can be uncomfortable and I don't want to feel the uncomfort of the unknown. So I do find that that energy though is very much like being just at that moment to moment, you know, edge in a way,
Yeah.
and just being so open and receptive and responsive, and step by step with it. And I have a huge overworker ability and history. And when I see a challenge ahead of me, like it's so easy for me to grab her, to grab that one that can just be like, get her done. Like my Montana roots come out and I'm just going to get her done. I'm going to focus real hard and we're going to, take it on. And I'm usually the one that has to do it all by myself. And that just isn't the way anymore. And so I feel excited to be kind of in the continual conversation with myself and with the universe of like learning a new way of being with these energies. The volumes turn so high, and trusting myself as a creator goddess, trusting that like I'm here to co create with the universe, and trusting that like I have the ability to, especially as an initiate, to like really work with the elements and work with the different forces of creation to really step more into that co-creative magical space. And I feel like that is just so much more accessible now as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And another word that's coming up as you were speaking for me is sustainability. And you talked about having that hard worker come out and the get her done kind of thing. I have that as well. I also have where I'm willing to kind of sustain situations that aren't necessarily super great for me for
Mm-hmm.
longer periods of time than I really should. Meaning
Mm-hmm.
that they're not really serving me, but I'm kind of willing to like just keep it going on. And I came down with COVID about a month ago. What I've been finding in my recovery process is that I don't have the same threshold levels. I can't sustain the same levels of kind of putting up with situations that drain my energy. And so it's kind of cool because it's giving me more direct feedback on like what truly is sustainable and what kind of life do I want to be building and what kind of experience do I want to have and what kind of experience do I want to create for my family and in this kind of co-creative collaborative space that we share of our home and our day-to-day lives and where everybody gets a chance to thrive. And it's like when we come to our daily life from a place of how can we make this sustainable for everybody so that we're all thriving instead of somebody paying a higher price and somebody else is sacrificing and therefore other people get to benefit. And I feel like that model is just really falling away. It's just not working anymore. And so this new kind of imprint of thriving through sustainability in a whole new way. It's a beautiful vision of the Shambhala, that paradise, Garden of Eden that we want to be building.
That has been a really interesting gift of COVID, is I feel like it has been this forced slowdown, and for a lot of people a big reevaluation of what's really important, what they really want to be putting their time and energy towards. And there is a big whole systemic rearrange that has happened, and it's been an interesting gift. And maybe one of the ways that was here to serve us is to offer that moment of pause. And I haven't had COVID, knock on wood, but many people have spoken to who I know who've had it, of what a journey it was, and the insights and the healing, and it was a journey that had gifts to it. So it's interesting that it's kind of manifesting here as we're transitioning into these energies.
Totally. For sure. For sure. Well, I want to open it up here in a minute to all of our other friends in the room and take this discussion a little bit further. Before we do that, I wanted to just touch in on one more thing that you said earlier, Sydney, which is about, really coming to life from this place of love and, and then with that acceptance. And I want to just focus on, I feel like this would be another fantastic topic for us to take on down the road. But some of the folks here have heard me talk about this before. I feel like we have a very minimal understanding of what love truly is.
Mm.
And, as you were talking about the gifts of COVID and the slowing down, I feel like one of the things that it's really given us is the opportunity to not take things at face value. And I feel like understanding love is one of those because it's a word we tend to throw around. It's like, oh, I love that. This is so great. Oh, how fabulous. I love you. And we tend to not really connect with the energy. Like, what is the true frequency of love? And what is the true power of love? Like, what can we actually do when we move from a place of love? And I feel like it's a whole realm of deeper wisdom and deeper understanding that we haven't really tapped as a broader society. And it's something that I feel like is coming forward more in this opportunity that COVID has given us to like go deeper into some of these spaces and places. Anything you want to add to that?
Oh my gosh, that's a universe. But yeah, I mean, I feel like my experience of love as a teacher in my life is that it's never like superficial, like love really asks a lot of depth of us. And to me, I feel like I've carved out the deepest capacities to love in being in the darkness. It's easy to love when everything is sunshine and rainbows. But like when we're asked to love in adversity and we're asked to love outside of our preferences, I feel like that's really where love is forged and deepened. And then, like those places in ourselves that we so often, the tendency of the negative ego, and, not even from a judgmental place, but just like there's real reasons through our childhood why we moved away from certain feelings and emotions, and like coming back to being able to embrace those and love them. And like it's just the medicine of unity, and the medicine that alchemizes, and the medicine that unifies both within and without. And it's forged so powerfully in having to face the hard stuff and face, especially within those parts of ourselves, and to bring love to those places that allows then us to bring love to those places and other, because we can only love from our own full cup, and we can only love to the depth that we've learned to love within, because it's within, as within, so without.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Okay, we're definitely going to circle back around to that topic on another on another episode, another session, another room. One of the things that I really liked in that last part of what you were saying, Sydney, was I don't know if you said this or it just kind of got evoked in what you were speaking to, but I feel like lately there's been a lot of revisiting of old patterns. I'd say in this last month for sure, maybe more. I've kind of lost track of time since I was in COVID land. But in a number of people I've talked to and clients and colleagues, there's just been a lot of very natural arising of old patterns, either from childhood or family of origin or things that were just kind of really showing up to be resolved and healed. And I'm curious if you've noticed that, Sydney.
Well, we just had a bunch of retrogrades all kind of happen. Mercury and a Venus, and then Pluto's been hanging around. So, any of you that speak astrology, a lot of those energies are about, revisiting what's left,
Yes.
like it brings back to us what we haven't, quite resolved and quite finished. And there's been some bigger themes of that in the astrology that's moved through the last 2 years. And I think that's a very appropriate theme in preparation for building of something new, is to clean up what's behind us before we can truly move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that in the context of this topic, meeting life where it's at, because we're always bringing to the table everything we're carrying, right?
Yeah.
So it's like if we're carrying things from the past, we're bringing that into the current experience of what we're creating. And just because we're not conscious or aware of it doesn't mean it's not at play in what we're creating. And so it's been really interesting in that retrograde land to be revisiting some of those patterns.
All right, so we are going to wrap up our conversation for now. Thank you so much, Sydney, for joining me today, for chatting with us. What a great discussion. So many nuggets to definitely follow up with. My guest today on the Inner Radiance podcast has been Sydney Culver. You can find her on social media, Instagram at Sydney Sacred, or Facebook. You can find her as Sydney Culver. And I'm so looking forward to having more juicy conversations with this amazing goddess to come. I'm Vila Lucas. Live your light and shine bright.